it's not a great story. Ooh, I'm nervous. My name is Dami. I'm a writer, and welcome to my channel. I just want to come here, say hi, introduce myself a little bit. I have a book coming out next summer, and I am always working on some other fantasy science fiction novel, and I like to grow a community. I like to meet other writers, because writing can be lonely and can be a little bit isolating. I'm just gonna dive right into it with some of the newbie tag, the Authortube New, whatever you want to call it tag. Let's just do this. First question, how did you find out about Authortube? So I found out about Authortube through Alexa Dunn when I was querying my first novel. You Google querying tips and SOS, I'm lost. Alexa Dunn's videos came up, and that's when I realized, oh, it's not just like BookTube here. Like, it's not just people who review books. It's not just book review content that is on YouTube. Like, writers are also here. And so I kind of, lurked, found some authors here on the Authortube space, and that was kind of my introduction. So I'd say I've been around Authortube as a viewer for like a year or so, like 1 or 2 years, but I've been listening to booktubers for a while, people like review books. I just didn't know that like writers were here too. And second question, what genres do you write in? I write predominantly fantasy and science fiction, predominantly young adult, but I am working on my very first adult sci-fi, adult steampunk. I'm in the escapism space. Take me out of here, because this place is not very litty. Third question, what is your preferred writing tense, point of view, and category of story? My preferred writing tense is past tense in terms of, what was the second question? Oh, I need to take my meds today. Writing tense, I said it was past. Point of view, third person. I don't like first person. I will read it, like if I know that the book is good or I've had like good recommendations. It's not even what they asked. What they asked was not me just like answering whatever question I want to answer. That's fine. I should take my meds first. Anyway, I prefer to write in third tense, and I prefer to read third tense as well. Third tense, Jesus. Third person. I prefer to read third person. I prefer to write third person. I will read first person if I really want to, type of thing. But if it's in first person, usually I'm just like, meh. And gosh, and what category of story? I prefer adult, young adult. I don't mind reading new adult. Everything past middle grade. I haven't really read a lot of middle grade past my own teenage years, to be honest, but middle grade is where my love for reading and writing like came from. Owen Colfer is like, that is when I realized like books are power, and so I love middle grade. I don't read much, but I'd like to actually get back into it because I want to know like what's going on in the genre, like what's cooking, good looking. But I read mostly fantasy, mostly science fiction, and in any other kind of age category. 4, are you a plotter, pantser, or plantser? I was a pantser up until I became more serious about wanting to publish. I kind of was very much like mood writer, vibe writer, and then when it's like I want to get published, I want to, like, that is a very concrete goal of mine. At that point, I started planning a little bit more. I plan out the beats of my stories now. I use like Save the Cat's beat sheet. I also really like the genres, like Save the Cat's like genres as well. I find that a lot of stories have multiple genres, right? Like if it's like a hero's journey or quest, or like monster in the house, like that sort of thing. It helps me kind of thematically stay consistent with my story, like I'm not losing sight of the project. And from that point forward, it's kind of off the seat of my pants, pantser. So I'm more of a combination plantser now. I like having my characters do their own thing. Are you a self-published, published, or yet to be published? Yet to be published, but I do have a publishing deal. Like I said, my first book, Children with Gifts, comes out next summer at GOODREADS, at the book on GOODREADS. I pitched it as Six of Crows meets X-Men. It's about a group of kids who have powers in a world very similar to ours. They're hired to steal back an item for a kind of business tech mogul, and they decide to pull off a heist of their own. That book is actually going to be published through an indie press, through Inked and Gray. So I got this publishing deal without an agent. And so when I signed my publishing deal, did not have an agent. However, now I do have an agent. The second book that I'm working on to get published, called The Sun Has a Shadow, and it is about two teenagers who are tasked with bringing back the sun after it disappeared for 5 years. Okay, now what? The next question is, what publishing company, literary agent, and or printing company are you represented by? If you're not yet published, what is your dream publishing house and or literary agent? So my first book, like I said, is going to be published by Inked and Gray Press, and I do have an agent. I love my agent so much. So with this second book that I'm working on, we're not yet on sub. I'm still kind of going through edits right now, developmental edits. And the week after I signed with her, she sent me 9 pages worth of notes, and she'd gone through my book, my manuscript, with a red pen. And I think like the kid in me who always liked school was so hyped. I was like so excited to get started, and we talked about kind of like changes to make when we were on like the call, and I really much like aligned with her suggestions and recommendations to kind of really step up and elevate the book. And I've gone through, actually I've completed one round, my own like round of developmental edits for this book, and I'm going through it again, kind of doing more line edits, making sure that I really did clean it up as well as I wanted to. Number 7, what Authortube related videos can we expect to find on your channel? That's a great question. I'm hoping to more like updates in terms of how is, publishing going, how is being on sub going. I don't imagine myself doing a lot of vlog type content. I don't know, like I really like being in the present. And so kind of the idea of recording myself as I'm doing the mundane is like really difficult and challenging for me. It's mostly like update content, answering questions content. Maybe I will get into like the writing vlog stuff. Just really my experiences with writing and how it's going and ups and downs. When did you start writing? I started writing, I don't even remember like when I started writing. My mom has like a really great story where I wrote a story about a deer because I had like a stencil cut out for like a deer, and so I made a little like book with pieces of paper folded in half, used the stencil to draw out a deer, wrote some story about it that I do not remember, but I'm pretty sure my mom still has the story. I went up to my mom and I was like, Mom, read the story. I think I had to be maybe 6 or something. Mom, read the story. And she read the story and she's like, oh, it's really good. And I was like, Mom, but how do you really feel about the story? Like I didn't believe her for some reason. And I do actually remember that part. I don't remember the story or anything else surrounding it, but I do remember the stencil. I remember drawing it on the front of the book that I wrote, and I remember asking my mom's opinion. I was like, but do you really like it? And she was like, yes, I really like your story. And I'm just laughing thinking about it. And then I said, no, do you really like the story? And she's like, okay, do you really want to know how I feel about the story? I was like, yes. And she, not like that, I was like, yes. And she was like, it's not a great story. And I don't want people to think that like, oh, your mom is so mean. Why would you say that to a 6-year-old? I harassed her for the truth, admittedly, multiple times. But I was like, no. And so I went back and like wrote another story. And I don't remember. I'm sure it was like better or whatever. But so from then, that's the earliest memory I have about enjoying writing and wanting to share it with people. And the thing is, my mom's always encouraged my writing. Like growing up, like in school, like won different like awards and things like that from like my writing and all this type of stuff. So she knew that it was something that I was passionate about, and she always like, she's a big push and like inspired me to pursue that. She's very supportive. I know this story about like this. What's your first story about writing? Might come across as like, dang, okay, but she's very supportive, and I love her so much. That is when I first started writing. What was the first story you ever wrote? The first story I ever completed was probably fan fiction. You'll not find it. Like the first piece of fiction that I really do recall being proud of that I shared with people was a short story. And it was about a character who develops aphasia. And aphasia, there's different like variations and like kind of severity of aphasia, different like types of aphasia. But aphasia, in short, is difficulty with speaking. It can be a language processing issue, a speech issue, depending on where in the brain the damage is done. I wrote this while I was an undergrad, and for a little bit of background, I'm a physician, and so I was pre-med. So I wrote a story about his relationship with his partner. So that was a short story. I ended up winning first place in a like medical writing conference. So that's like the first story that I like remember sharing with people that was completed. What authors have inspired your writing the most? I think I already mentioned Owen Colfer, huge, and I really hope I'm pronouncing his name correctly, and I'm probably not. Biggest inspiration, I think, for writing, especially middle grade, because I think writing middle grade is so challenging. You have to write in a way where you're engaging this audience of like these kids who have such great imaginations and don't want to be talked down to. And so I think of like a series of unfortunate events. I think of Artemis Fowl talking to these middle graders as if they're grown-ups. And I don't mean grown-ups in terms of the content. Very like matter of fact, making jokes, tongue in cheek. And it's just so great because I remember being middle grade, and the most frustrating thing when you're preteen, just a teenager, is everyone's like, you'll understand when you're older, you won't get it now. And it's so infuriating to hear that all the time. And it's true, but it doesn't make it less infuriating. But as a reader, when you're reading a book and they're not talking to you like that or not treating you like that, it just means so much. And I think that's why I connected so much with middle grade books when I was a kiddo. And so those were the books that really inspired me to want to write and to want to read, just because I was able to connect and understand and just love it and was so immersed. And Owen Colfer's book, specifically not even the Artemis Fowl books, but The Wish List. I read that book 20 times. I think I have it here somewhere. Do I have it here? Stand up and actually look for it because I love so much. Oh, there, I found it. This book I loved so much. I actually bought it as like an adult. Like I found it like at half price books or something and bought it. I just rented it from the library. I was a library kid reader, always renting it out. If I couldn't find a book I didn't want to read, it was this or Aragon when I was a kid. I love middle grade. I think that's why I don't write it. I'm just so intimidated by it. Middle grade is where my passion for storytelling, like that's where it really developed. 10th question. Do you schedule your writing sessions or simply get to writing whenever you can find the time? Mostly whenever I can get the time. So I already mentioned this, but I am a physician. I own my own private practice. I'm busy, like being a business owner and being a physician. I am very lucky, very blessed to be in a spot financially. I don't work 5 days a week. During the weekend, you're just busy with other people. I want to be present in my life, with my family, with friends. Like that's really important. I want to continue maintaining those sort of relationships, and that happens on weekends. And I write best when I know I won't be interrupted, which is hard if I know like something's coming up and that sort of thing. And so having like a day and a half during the week where I might have to get other errands done, but I know I won't be interrupted, super helpful for my writing, super helpful to kind of keep me in the zone. So in a sense, I do plan out the writing like that, but up until now, I've been stealing time. So I had training, I had residency, all this type of stuff. Number 12, do you type on a computer, typewriter, write stuff by hand? Where do I write generally? I generally write on my desktop. I have a lot of stuff going on when I'm writing. So I have like my page. I usually use Scrivener for drafting, but when I'm revising and editing, that's in a Word document. Like Spotify in the corner, mood boards, like a beat sheet for me to like cheat and reference to. So I have like a lot going on when I'm writing. Used to write on a laptop, but got a desktop around 2020. Built my own PC like everybody else did during COVID. Last question, lucky number 13. What are you most looking forward to now that you're part of Authortube? Community. Writing is very lonely. It's done in the quiet. It's not done like with people. Like yes, you can have like writing dates and that sort of thing with people once you know them, but like I don't know a lot of other writers in my like immediate sphere. Part of having this Authortube is to see if I can build up a community for myself and just get to know people, and then that's honestly the really big thing. Other thing too is like just in terms of things like marketing and getting my book out there, right, and sharing that content. I used to be on Instagram, okay? I used to be an Instagram girly. I also cosplay, plot twist, and I had a cosplay account at like 10K followers or so, and I don't do that as often anymore. I just kind of dipped. It's wild to me, honestly, that I just like left 10K followers on Instagram, knowing how hard it is to build that sort of following now. It's just Instagram and TikTok are way too fast. It's fast. You need to grab someone's attention. It's just way too fast for me. I'm not on Instagram much. I'm not on TikTok much because I just don't like it. I don't find it entertaining. Sure, maybe my algorithm hasn't, like, I haven't algorithmed my algorithm right. And so that's probably why that urge to doom scroll isn't there as much for me. I get so irritated with it so quickly. Like, clearly my algo is not algoing. It's too fast for me. I'm not gonna put in that much effort into producing something for Instagram and TikTok, knowing that the expectation is that it needs to catch someone's attention in like 0.5 seconds. The people put in work for their Instagram and their TikToks and their posts. And I feel like we are not acknowledging how much work goes behind some of this stuff. And I, frankly, am not willing to put in that sort of work for something that is not appreciated properly. That is another reason why I'm on YouTube, because I thought about it. I was like, well, if you don't like Instagram and you don't like TikTok, why are you there? If you don't like to hang out there, what are you doing there, girly? That doesn't make any sense. And I thought to myself, well, where am I? Like, where do I like to hang out? Like, or when I'm on social media, where am I? And the answer is YouTube. Like, I'm on YouTube. I'm watching booktubers. I'm watching video essays. Like, I'm on YouTube. Like, that is my #1 social media platform. But that is where I am. And so it just makes sense. Like, well, if that's where you are, then why don't you produce content for that space? Yes, it takes a while to create videos and to edit, but frankly, at this point, it takes as long to do that on Instagram and TikTok as well. Like, let's not play games. So that's another reason why I'm here, because TikTok and Instagram was just too fast for my liking. I'm too slow. I like things to be a little bit slower, and I'm just not there. So it just makes sense to be posting content for people where, like, I don't even like being there. That doesn't make sense. So YouTube it is. So I think that's everything. Yep, those are all the questions. But yeah, introduce yourself, say hi. I'd love to know what you're writing, what you're reading, any like video ideas or like things that you'd like to see me talk about in the future. Would love to know about that too. But for now, I am going to work. Vote for the Beagle. What does it say? Does it say? Can you see it? Yep, back the Beagle, because our options here in America are not very great. Don't write in the Beagle. There's only one correct answer for this election this year. It's not the felon.